Serious, people from Reddit who survived corona. How has your daily life changed? What are the side effects after? Depends on your definition of surviving. My grandma that I've been caring for since I was 12 died from complications when she caught it from a visitor who refused to wear a mask. He was infected. I lost my second grandmother a month later. Her husband, my grandpa, died from a broken heart the following week. Now my aunt in Arizona caught it and is in ICU. My little cousin is showing symptoms and there is nothing I can do but watch them slowly get sicker and pray and hope and beg they don't die. This is so devastating. I'm so sorry for your losses. I hope you are not alone to deal with this. I caught it from a patron who visited the bar I worked at in March. He was laughing about coming back to the UK from Italy, which had the worst rate of infection at the time. I was really ill and couldn't really breathe for a long time and ended up with pneumonia and cracked ribs from coughing. No doctors wanted to see me and I couldn't get a test because it was so early on. So I had to manage by myself from home. I was exhausted all the time and worried that I wouldn't wake up because I was too tired to breathe by myself. I recovered after about 3 weeks and managed okay from then until it came back again in July. It was so much worse the second time. I have spoken to about 15 different doctors and they all say it's more likely to have been reactivation rather than catching it for a second time. But I ended up in hospital with oxygen saturation of 88%. I was unconscious in the ambulance and had to go to A&E but myself as my boyfriend wasn't allowed with me. It was incredibly scary. They let me go with some oxygen canisters and serious monitoring for the next 4 weeks. Since then I have stopped coughing but the fatigue is unreal and I am experiencing what I would call COVID brain. I still have scarring on my lungs, and I'm not sure that I will ever be as well as I was before again. Occasionally my cough will come back but most of the time now it's the not being able to work or move all that much. Everything is exhausting. All of this because someone decided they'd rather have a pint of beer than save lives. I nearly died at the hospital. He doesn't know me or the effect he's had on my life, but I hope a tiny part of him feels guilty. I'm desperately sad and angry. I got it at the end of July and had mild symptoms for 3 weeks. Lost my sense of smell, no appetite, lost weight and could barely walk in the beginning of it. I'm young and have no underlying health issues. As of now, I still get extremely fatigued. When I was nearing the end of my other symptoms, I couldn't stay awake at all, and my smell comes and goes also. I'm just now getting a negative test back and it's almost October. So I was testing positive for 2 months even when I started to feel better. Some inspo for anyone frightened and having anxiety over this virus. Both of my parents have compromised immune systems, cancer and lupus, and they overcame COVID too. So there is hope for anyone who gets it but that isn't always the case. So please take it serious guys. It isn't fun at all and it did not feel like the flu symptoms to me lol it wasn't anything I'd ever felt before. Personally I had no effects apart from feeling crap for a few days. I was one of the first in my area to be isolated as my dad was the second person in the county to have caught COVID whilst already in hospital. Over a period of 6 days from the day he tested positive, things got progressively worse and sadly I lost my dad on the 6th day. In normal circumstances it is almost impossible to wrap your head around but as we were isolated it was even stranger being stuck inside whilst trying to process. Whilst this was happening my stepmother also caught COVID as we had all been in contact with my dad the day he had tested positive. Between 4 of us left in the household, 2 had symptoms within 10 days and 1 had absolutely no symptoms and I had few for a short number of days. My stepmother has made a full recovery health-wise. Daily life has changed drastically over the past 6 months as we deal with my dad's passing whilst processing everything else that is happening in the world corona related. I think the most frustrating thing is the people that do no believe and it takes everything I have to not react to the silly comments you see plastered on social media. My main side effect is extreme fatigue. My mom still can barely taste anything and has lost some smell. It's been around 2 weeks. Daily life is mainly changed by the amount of makeup work homework that needs to be done. Y'all, please wear a freaking mask and social distance. I didn't even get a bad version of corona but it still felt like I had a horrible version of strep. Mom can still kind of feel things like saltiness. but has accidentally oversalted things like soup because she can barely taste anything. Extreme fatigue is hard when you have to do around 7 hours of school and do makeup homework. Biggest side effect was losing my 62-year-old dad to the virus. The rest of my family recovered. Just a loss of taste for a month after the fever went away. I'm so sorry for your loss. I wish you the best. I had it quite badly back in March. I was unable to get out of bed for 2 weeks solid. I lost 16 pounds in that time. Could barely breathe in the second week. Turns out I had an autoimmune response. Was very feverish and exhausted all the time. I slept maybe 22 hours a day. I narrowly avoided a hospital admission UK here. Since March it has taken a long time to get back to normal. It took about 4 months to get my fitness back, but for the first couple of months I struggled to climb the stairs without being breathless. I had strange aches and pains in my muscles. I also struggled with insomnia, nightmares and an urgent and frequent need to pee. Then at 12 weeks post-illness my hair started falling out badly. Woman hair, not that it matters, but it really bothered me. Thankfully it has stopped and has started growing back. My mental health really suffered immediately afterwards. A doctor told me it was a mild trauma response. I found therapy and walking outside for an hour a day very helpful. Now 6 months on, I'm feeling like me again. I think I'm very lucky. I tested positive for COVID earlier this month. I almost never leave my house, and when I do I wear a face mask. It started as any other flu. On the 3rd day I lost my sense of smell. Completely. I couldn't even smell vinegar, nor have a physical reaction towards such a strong smell. I decided to take the test and it ended up being positive. Since I live with my parents and my brother, I was super worried I might have spread the virus to them. Luckily, no one presented symptoms even though, before the test was positive, we were together for extended periods without using face masks. For about 10 days I felt as if I had gone out to a very heavy night of drinking and dancing until 6 AM, and as if somebody had beaten the crap out of me. I felt hungover, extremely tired, and everything hurt, especially my muscles and joints. Luckily I never had fever or respiratory problems. Now, I feel pretty much as if I never got it. My smell is returning slowly but surely, and that makes me very happy since food is probably my favorite thing ever. Food is the best. It's a blessing to be able to taste. Thank you for sharing and love hearing that you're doing alright. Stay safe and also thanks for wearing face masks. I had corona for 4 weeks. Constantly coughing so hard I would throw up and sometimes cough up blood. No doctors would see me and just sent in prescriptions for me over the phone that my husband went and picked up for me. We have a spare room in our house where I stayed alone for 4 weeks as to not get my son or husband sick. I had a TV and a bathroom to myself. My O2 saturation got down to 83% at one point, so I went to the hospital. They gave me another test even though I already knew I had it, and told me 83% isn't bad. Just don't lay down flat cause you could pass out and not get enough oxygen leading to organ and brain damage. They sent me home with no prescriptions, just the advice to sleep sitting up. So I slept sitting up from there on out, afraid that if I lay down I would die. In total my prescriptions and recommended medications were nebulizer, albuterol solution, albuterol inhaler, told you use it every 3 hours. I got a RX for cough medicine that was a steroid. I forget the name unfortunately, and my doctor also recommended I use the cough syrup Delsim. With all of that advice and medications I still felt like I was dying. I couldn't breathe. My throat was so sore from coughing that I could hardly eat. I was terrified to sleep, fearing I wouldn't wake up. But after the 4 weeks of isolation and sickness I felt better and came out of my room. Now it's been 5 months since then. I have no long-term effects from this. I feel 100% better and didn't spread it to any of my family or friends. 83 is really bad. Doctors here would not send someone home with that SAT level. I'm sorry you suffered so badly for that month, it sounds terrible. I am glad you are better. I was 4 months pregnant and had bad fevers and did not want to go or move a lot, but my BF got it too and he was in the hospital and almost died due to COVID. He got pneumonia and doctors were telling him that they were not sure if he was gonna live. He got the plasma transfer and he's okay now but was on oxygen after the hospital. Overall it sucked, but here I am working almost 8 months pregnant. I was one of the early adopters, but didn't put it together until the known symptoms list stabilized. I had very light symptoms, almost non-existent. Roommate got laid out. Up until a few months ago, taking a flight of stairs winded me. I originally thought it was because I got fat over winter. Now, not as much. My wife passed away due to complications of the coronavirus. She fought for a month. 1 week at home because hospitals would not take in a pregnant woman with mild symptoms and no swab test results confirming that she has it, and 3 very difficult weeks in the hospital. She was 8 months pregnant at that time, having low-grade fever and no other signs of the infection. When she was finally admitted to a hospital, her oxygen saturation was already dropping and her X-ray results showed pneumonia. She was intubated and had an emergency C-section to deliver the baby while she still had strength for an operation. She suffered so much and fought so much. On separate occasions, both her lungs collapsed. She had postpartum depression and IQ psychosis. She was in constant pain from all the medicine, medical equipment attached to her body and all the procedures done to her. And yet, there was never a time that she flinched and gave up. She wanted to live. For me, her baby boy and girl. Except her, not one of us got infected. I was admitted to the hospital for a time, and our firstborn and newborn baby were also put in isolation. All of us tested negative. 7 weeks from her death, not much has changed. I still cry every day. Everything I see reminds me of her and it hurts knowing that there were so many things I could have done better. She was my moral compass, my guiding light, and now I am lost. Stories like this should be at the freaking top, not herp derp I just had a mild cough. Your wife's story should be heard by everyone. This is the exact freaking thing lockdowns, masks, etc are trying to prevent. I don't give a crap if people think this is an outlier. I'm very sorry for your loss. Your wife was a warrior. Best wishes to you and the kids. Well over a month after recovering from COVID, my heart rate is greatly elevated. Resting pre-COVID was 60-70. Post-COVID it's 90-110. Walking across my apartment, it increases to 130 and upwards. I'm 21 and in good physical shape. I work at the hospital and you'd be surprised how much COVID is freaking up hearts. Heart blocks, tachycardia as a resting rate, high heart rate spikes. A 62-year-old woman just passed from corona and her resting heart rate before they took her off life support was 135. That morning was a normal day. I went to work at an urgent care and felt perfectly fine. Well, by 10 AM I had a fever of 103 and couldn't breathe. There was no warning, it happened in seconds. I called my manager and explained to him what was happening. I self-isolated in an empty exam room and waited for the infectious disease team to take me to the ER. My husband was notified but wasn't able to be with because of the contraction rate. Once arriving to the ER I was unable to be with the public, so I was taken into a COVID-19 tent where I waited and waited and waited. After 7 hours of testing and precaution training from the health department I was able to go home. It was the longest 16 days of my life. The pain and the constant feeling of suffocation was the worst. I couldn't even walk to the bathroom without being out of breath and my legs hurting like I was hit by a truck. I was quarantined in my upstairs bedroom while the only communication was to my husband was yelling through the door. Here I am 3 months later and I still wake up throughout the night because I can't breathe. I'm on a daily low dose of steroids as well as an inhaler. I had a clean bill of health before this. I has corona. Felt like crap for 3 days. Fever, dreams with hallucinations. Couldn't leave my bed. A week later back to normal. Now about 4 months later I don't feel like there is any permanent damage. Glad to hear you're feeling normal again. Stamina seems to be cut in half. At least I stopped with the audible wheezing on every breath a couple months ago. But I've gone from being able to normally go out hiking 8-12 miles before March to getting totally exhausted after 4 miles. Less if there's even a hint of any elevation change. Just can't get enough oxygen in my lungs. Not the worst thing in the world, of course, so many other people have more serious long-lasting permanent damage, but kinda sad to think this is going to be the new normal for me, and it's likely I won't be able to do as much physically as I used to, ever. It may come back. Even complications from more normal lung issues like pneumonia can last for months before full recovery, but full function often does come back. Tasting isn't right and I have the permanent need to clear my throat. Like there's phlegm but there isn't. But doctor has basically told me that's life for me now. My husband has the permanent need to clear his throat. It turned out to be good and post-nasal drip. He has been tested multiple times for COVID. Always negative. I'm 21. Got in March. It was really just 5 days of pure heck and then I recovered in about 2 days without going to a hospital or anything. Glad to hear you're feeling better. My wife and me, 60 and 63Y, had a bronchitis that just took longer to go away than normal. Only afterwards after the test we realized it was corona. My wife lost her smell for 2 months. I recovered without any problems. Since we now have antibodies we're not too afraid anymore to go out, though of course we still wear masks, disinfect and practice social distancing. So we're pretty calm right now. Whoa, great to hear. Thank you for sharing and still using masks and practicing social distancing. Mine was pretty mild. 3 days of being sick and 2 days of mild illness, followed by 3 months of pretty bad asthma. I still have bad headaches almost every day, since mid-March. That's crazy. Everybody is talking about catching and beating COVID but only a few talk about the aftermath. I hope you will recover 100%. Stay safe and thanks for sharing. I, 42F, still have heart palpitations, blood pressure spikes, dizziness and headaches. It took 2 months for my sense of smell taste to come back. I have occasional brain fog. I had it back in February-March, so it's been 6 months since I was sick. My younger son, 3, also had it and was sick for 3 weeks. He doesn't seem to have any lingering effects. 3 weeks a long time to deal with a sick toddler. Glad he's better. I currently have it, and day 1 was horrendous fever and suffering, but since then, 7 days, I've felt okay, just too tired to get out of bed. Anyone else had this fatigue? I didn't notice really. Thought I was just really tired for some reason. Was harder to run afterwards and still is a little harder to run but I still do. Overall didn't have a huge effect. 6/10 disease, wouldn't get again. Thanks, your review made me realize it's not worth it. I don't want COVID anymore. I was never hospitalized, just stuck in bed and quarantined. I felt like I had a third of my normal lung capacity for weeks after I recovered. I couldn't get up the stairs without taking a break halfway up to catch my breath. I couldn't carry a full laundry basket, just felt very weak and short of breath for a long time. But now I am feeling 100% back to normal. Well, from personally having coronavirus, nothing much has changed except being extra careful and not wanting to have it again cause of how drained it made me feel. From others, my nan died from coronavirus and later my uncle, for your information, not from corona, and we had to sell my nan's house. It's been terribly difficult to deal with. My dad had to get rid of stuff from her house, which was the most hardest part of it all. I was pretty depressed from grief and had zero motivation to do anything. PMS and periods were super hard to deal with. Anything was making me burst into tears. It was a mess. Hearing my uncle saying she's gone is gonna haunt me forever. I'm so sorry about your nan and uncle. Stay strong, and if you wanna talk about something, message me. I know how it is to lose someone and the depression and anger after. Please stay safe and don't catch it another time. I had no symptoms and only got tested because I was planning on visiting someone who is vulnerable. Turns out I had antibodies but wasn't sick at all. Same. I live in a joint family, everyone got it but me and my mum. I'm young, healthy, and don't have any underlying disease, so I wasn't much worried. My mum on the other hand is diabetic, has blood pressure issue, sciatica, and do get sick like every month at least once. It was shocking how she was asymptomatic too. My mom is a COVID survivor and would like her story to possibly help others. She was one of 3 people that survived being on ECMO out of 25 at the hospital she was at. She was incredibly weak when she first got home, but has greatly progressed since then. She made her own little write-up she wanted to share that the newspaper didn't run with, but I could share it here if there is interest in her story and what she deals with now. I had minimal effects when I was sick, but now I have some undiagnosed disease-causing issues. I have chronic fatigue, sleep like crap, all physical exertion wipes me out, and basically everything is just harder and more miserable now. I've gone through every test I can afford and now I'm just on the waiting game. Doctors call it post-viral infection syndrome, but basically it's just diagnosis by exclusion. Sadly, post-viral infection syndrome is a very real thing and it sucks. Being that COVID is a vascular disease, it's not unreasonable for people to deal with chronic fatigue and lack of stamina. I hope you're able to recover. Well, for me it was pretty bad. My whole family got hit. Before we got it, we sanitized hourly. Nothing went uncleaned and we took vitamins every day. We stayed inside the house while my brother, my mom, and my dad worked. Everything was fine. We were all strong and healthy. When we got hit, it hit me and my brother first. I couldn't taste or smell some foods and it sucked. I got coughing fits and my mom decided that we should wear masks in the house, so we did. Everyone took time off from work. As my brother and I were quarantined in our rooms, we only got worse. I was having shorter breaths and worse coughing fits. Then mom got sick, which led to my sisters getting sick. Mom, my brother, and I got it the worst. We were soon hospitalized after we could only breathe 1 second breaths. By the second week in the hospital I lost a lot of muscle. I didn't want to eat food at all and I felt like crap overall. I couldn't even say I love you over the phone to my family on the nights I thought I was going to die. During sickness, back home everyone was fine. They tested negative after a few weeks, but my mom, brother, and I were still in the hospital. I then went on oxygen and it was easier to breathe. My nurse had me do some breathing exercises on the days I was feeling good. As a month went on, we broke the first barrier. They sat me up and I tried walking for the first time in forever. It was hard, like really hard, and after just standing up I had to stop. Another week went by and I could take a few steps with help. We were getting better by the day and I knew that I'd get out of the hospital. After 2 months I was the first to go back. I still stayed in bed but I could sit up on my own. I tested negative. I was so happy. I did it. I beat COVID. Side effects after. A lot of things have changed. I can't run very far and I have trouble walking long distances. I can't get enough air to my lungs and it feels like there is a weird pain right in the middle of my lower chest area. I'm not on oxygen anymore and neither is my mom and brother. We all tested negative but we still sanitize hourly. I lost a lot of muscle during my time at the hospital and I am working to get it back. Still can't taste and smell some things. Overall it was the scariest and hardest experience I have faced so far. I'm only 14. Thank you to the nurses and doctors who helped my family and I get healthy again. I don't know what would have happened if things were different. I'm only 14. That hit hard. I hope you and your family recover fully. Sorry you went through it all. Both of my middle-aged parents got it. They didn't have it that bad. Thankfully, sort of like a minor flu that just happened to last 6 weeks. It's been months since they got better, but still, they are both tired all the time. They've become people who take naps. I had COVID in early July after visiting a friend out of state. My symptoms got to be pretty bad. Ran up to a 102 fever. Night chills, sore throat and just general fatigue were the worst of it. I was down and out for about 5 days, with the middle 3 being pretty rough. Then I had a lingering sore throat for about a week after. Far from the worst I heard of, but not the best experience either. So on to the question. I would say my daily life now is back to completely normal and has been for about 1.5 months. However, between the end of my symptoms and total recovery there was general drop in my physical abilities. I'm an avid weightlifter and have pretty decent cardiovascular abilities. Well, those both took a nosedive. I could barely run a mile and my lifts dropped to about 75% of what they were. Looking at it now it just seems like one big setback. Luckily I work from home so that side of my life was not greatly affected. I'm a nurse in a busy pulmonary ICU and I will never be the same. I have seen so many die. So many sweet older people that we became close with before they finally had to be intubated. I'll never forget the first time I video called a family so they could watch as their grandma left this world. I sobbed while holding the patient's cell phone. They were so appreciative, but it felt so cold and cruel. Hospital staff are worn down and traumatized. We are still reusing N95 masks, which is very frustrating. We've had one coworker die, though we tried everything to save him. We have also had some very sick pregnant women that have survived but went through heck. Please keep vigilant, folks. Wear masks. Avoid large crowds. Get a flu shot. Register and make a plan to vote. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.